Florence is the capital of Tuscany, a city of art and joie de vivre. Across the River Arno is the Ponte Vecchio, with its shops, which, until the gold and silversmiths took over, once specialised in the meat trade as butchers. The Uffizi, which were built for the Grand Duke Cosimo as administrative buildings, today house one of the most celebrated and frequently visited art galleries in Europe. Cosimo the Elder behaved like a normal citizen and gave away the accumulated wealth of the Medici family to the entire city. With its magnificent tower, the Palazzo Vecchio is a communal palace that's been the city's political centre since the beginning of the 14th century. Originally, the People's Palace was the seat of the city's Republican rulers, but soon the Medici dynasty settled here. The equestrian statue of Cosimo, as well as numerous statues of great artists, adorn the Piazza della Signoria. Commissioned by Alessandro de' Medici, the sculptor Bandinelli created the statue Hercules kills Cacus to symbolize the power of the people. At the end of the 14th century, only a few families ruled the city. The Medici were by far the cleverest and most powerful. In front of the palace's façade, there's a double life-size statue that's a copy of Michelangelo's David. In the Galleria Dell Accademia, there are also several sculptures by Michelangelo that idealized and glorified the strength of the Renaissance people. The three-sided Gothic cathedral and the Campanile are tightly packed into the city centre's Cathedral Square. The Santa Maria del Fiore Cathedral is a replica of St. Peter's in Rome and the Cathedral of Milan. The massive Gothic building was first consecrated in 1436. Although the cathedral's huge main aisle is hung with tapestries, its interior is not as impressive as its exterior. Completed in 1472, the imposing dome with its laterna, a masterpiece by Brunelleschi, is 107 meters tall. Inside the two-layered dome, there are 463 steps that lead to a most beautiful view over the rooftops of this old city. Although the 414 steps of the Gothic Campanile are tiring, the climb up the most beautiful bell tower in the whole of Italy is extremely rewarding. In about 1300 AD, Florence, this splendid location on the River Arno, had approximately 100 inhabitants. The bronze Tower to Paradise adorns the city's most sacred building, the Battistero. Until the 19th century, newborn babies were baptized here. Its mighty inner dome, in Byzantine style, is supported by strong Roman columns. In a gigantic mosaic, Christ, the judge of the world, features with angels and battles with the devil. Is the centre of this city pride or a delusion of grandeur? From the Ponte Vecchio, the street leads directly to the imposing two-storey Palazzo Pitti, seat of the former ruler Cosimo Medici. The Giardino di Boboli is located on a hill behind the Palazzo Pitti and was later extended to the city wall. Narrow walkways lead up the hill to the house of Zanobi del Rosso. Today it is a coffee house with a garden and a view over Florence. The imposing Forte di Belvedere served as a fortress and later featured as the highest lookout point in this garden setting. Several decorative fountains, figures of famous Renaissance artists, and artificial grottos embody this typical all'italiana garden. As if in a magic fairy tale garden, paths and walkways contain playful water features and heads of stone. A fantastic dream garden of the Renaissance. From 1444, the Medici family lived in the Palazzo Medici Riccardi that was built by Michelangelo until in 1540 they moved into the Palazzo Vecchio. Statues decorate the elegant inner courtyard. The courtyard is arranged as a stylish garden with a small fountain and sculptures. Carved wooden ceilings with expensive decorations and costly tapestries decorate the spacious interiors. The rough walls of the building's façade are more reminiscent of an impregnable fortress than of an artistic Renaissance palace. San Lorenzo was the Medici family's cathedral and one of the earliest creations of the Florentine Renaissance. The basilica's transverse columns and arched dome leads to an impressive and harmonious interior room. To make way for the cathedral, an entire section of the city was torn down, a process that cost the Medicis a large sum of money. Consequently, the neighbouring Cappelle Medici was planned as a mausoleum for the noble family, but it took many centuries for the eight-cornered building to actually be completed. No expense or effort was spared, and the most valuable materials from around Europe were brought here and worked by the finest craftsmen. Michelangelo's monumental sarcophagus of the Grand Dukes are contained in the side walls and watched over by marble sculptures entitled Day, Night, Dusk and Dawn Light. Pope Eugene IV handed the ill-repaired San Marco monastery to the Dominican order, and Cosimo Medici paid for its restoration. By so doing, it could be said that he desired to cleanse his conscience. Close to the Holy Antonius Cloister, there's now a monastery and a museum, and everywhere there are striking frescoes of the artist-monk Fra Angelico. Several of these valuable sacred paintings are on view in the monastery and its surrounding buildings. A visit to this monastery is an unforgettable experience, especially the large collection of art that is on display. Santissima Annunziata was founded by the Order of Serviten. The church honours Mary, and the so-called Findle House was Europe's first orphanage. Ferdinand I looks out benevolently at lovingly worked figures of small children, as though he protects these dramatic images that adorn the fountain in the middle of the square. Three sides of the square are defined by arcades. Santa Maria Novella is one of the city's most beautiful churches. Built at the end of the 13th century, the monastic church of the Dominicans is impressive with its facades of white and green marble. Although the Romano-Gothic complex of the monastery has been damaged several times by flooding, it's been painstakingly restored. Paolo Uccello and 3 other masters created frescoes here on themes of the Old Testament, and the abundance of ornamental gravestones evoke the past. The architecture of the Palazzo Strozzi is the finest example of a Florentine Renaissance palace. The beautiful inner courtyard is today dominated by a glass pyramid. Typical of the 14th century, the Palazzo d'Avanzati features the original furniture and layout of the rooms. In the middle of the 15th century, the prominent wool merchant Roquelaire had a town palace built in Roman antique style. The Augustines founded the Santo Spirito monastery in the 13th century, and later commissioned Filippo Brunelleschi to complete it, which architecturally is similar to San Lorenzo. Sculptures and frescoes are on display in an adjoining museum. Especially impressive is the well-arranged, harmonious interior, which is a construction gem of Florentine early Renaissance. Now it's the final resting place of abbots and a reminder of glorious monastic times. With both pride and delusions of grandeur, the Florentine people wanted to prove their superiority over the other towns in the region. This was a dangerous wish. But the city of Florence has nevertheless succeeded in being a combination of beauty, spirit, and belief. And its dynamic daily life has hardly changed at all. Santa Croce is the largest Gothic Franciscan church in Italy, with a façade that was completed in the 19th century. Here there are monuments to countless famous personalities such as Michelangelo, Machiavelli, Rossini, Galileo Galilei, and many others. The interior of Santa Croce represents the high point of Italian Gothic architecture, not due to just the enormous size of its interior, but also the simplicity of its dimensions. In front of the church is the Piazza Santa Croce, whose centre depicts the statue of probably the most famous poet of the European Middle Ages, Dante Alighieri. The Mercato Nuovo was built in the gigantic pillared hall of a well-preserved Roman temple. Around the Piazza d'Ognissanti, near to the banks of the River Arno, an important centre for the manufacture of wool was established. Founded in 1250, the Church of the Holy Spirit only attained its present form much later. Its Baroque interior contains funereal and holy figures. A number of works of art can be viewed here, such as Botticelli's Holy Augustine and Ghirlandaio's Supper. Today's Baroque façade has a majolica relief over the main entrance, the Crowning of Mary, which dates back to 1637. Florence is still a carefree town and the cradle of the Renaissance, the political, economic and cultural metropolis of Tuscany. Carabinieri suddenly arrive, their horses stopping to have a drink at a small fountain located in a wall. Florence was at its zenith in the 15th century. At that time, this city of bankers and tradesmen on the Arno River became the most influential of European metropolises. Through a well-kept gate in the old city wall, the route leads up to the town balcony, the Monte alle Croci mountain. And from all around there's the dominant bell tower of the Palazzo Vecchio. On the heights, on the other side of the Arno River, there's the jewel of Romano-Florentine architecture, the most beautiful church in Florence, San Miniato al Monte. Its façade depicts Jesus, the ruler of the world, with two Holy Spirits. In the year 250 AD, the Holy Minos suffered martyrdom in Florence. After his beheading, legend has it that he climbed the hill with his severed head in his hands. A holy monument was erected above his grave, and at the beginning of the 11th century it was transformed into a pillared Benedictine church. San Miniato al Monte can be seen as a total work of art, as clear proof of the Renaissance and as a manifestation of faith. In its ancient-looking crypt, which is striking in its spirituality, the remains of holy martyrs are preserved. From a Roman military town at the foot of the once Etruscan town of Fiesole, Florence became a prosperous trading city that flourished in many diverse and artistic ways. and the entire world obtained its taste for culture from this city. In Florence, art and culture join in beautiful completion.